I'm interested in large dams that impact nobody. Isn't that an impossibility? Rachel, I think you should come in on this one.
Well, not against dams, but just against their impact. That reminds me of debates I used to have about contraception when I worked on women's health. But I think let me walk you through our thought process so you can see where we come out and why we believe that storage dams are an essential part of adaptation to climate change, but multi-use infrastructure is an essential part of meeting all of the crises that countries face. So we have a food crisis, we need food security. We have a water crisis, we need water security. We have an energy crisis, we need energy security. Each country has different assets available to it at different price points for their development over time. Each country has a different kind of social dialogue going on between people, government, and the private sector about what's possible. Climate change is a forcing mechanism for many countries to have to grapple with those three crises in the same time, with the same public purse, with the same sort of development partners. And so we're seeing a profound impact of climate change on the way countries are thinking about how are they going to adapt in the future. And for us, all of our development work now is really adaptation. And so the needs for infrastructure are now multiple use infrastructure that's going to help you meet your food security needs because it's storing water and you can build resilience. Infrastructure that's going to help you meet your energy needs, and infrastructure that's going to help storage from a water purpose as well. And whether we look at it from an energy point of view, where the world is committing itself to sustainable energy for all by 2030, for some countries, their energy transition means that hydro is going to be part of the solution. And in some cases, that's going to be large hydro. But it's going to be micro, mini, MIDI, you name it, but it's going to be part of the solution. In order to build resiliency, to allow for water to be stored for water purposes, but also for agriculture purposes, large storage dams will be the solution in some parts of the world. And increasingly, you're seeing regional solutions. You're seeing regional integration in East Africa, regional power pools, but also transfers of water. And so whether we look at this from a regional development perspective, we look at it from an energy, a water, or an agriculture perspective, at some point in the puzzle, large infrastructure is going to be part of it, and large water storage infrastructure is going to be part of it. Not everywhere in the world, but some places in the world.
But why isn't the World Bank more involved then? You've built hardly any in recent years.
Right.
And there's an accusation that possibly the standards you set are standards that are influenced by the developed world, which has had the benefit for all of this,
Yep.
and is now imposing it on developing countries which can neither afford it or indeed are in such an urgent situation they can't wait for it. So why aren't you building more, and are your standards partly to blame for this delay in building more water storage?
So no doubt that we got out of infrastructure in a big way over the course of the last 15 years. So our portfolio has shifted with the nuances and vagaries of international development faddism. We're as guilty as everybody else. We're back in infrastructure in a big way since 2007, 2008, as a result of clear client demand and as a result of the financial crisis on top of all of those other crises I mentioned. Now I think we... And around large dams, it was quite clear that there was a very large hue and cry. John lived through it more than I did, around whether or not large dams were ever the solution. But most of that argument was really an argument on the energy side, I think, and that's where some of the hysteria comes from that you were referring to earlier. We, I think now, are quite clear that we need to be in a dam business where the dam is, or a dam is part of the solution. And that's regionally specific, it's country specific, it's solution specific. So we are not out of the dam business, we're coming back into the dam business, and our pipeline of projects is beginning to develop. Our standards, I don't think our standards are too high. What's been very interesting over the last 10 years is that standards on both the private and public sector side have coalesced. There is really now a very clear sort of understanding about what international good practices across the private sector and the public sector and across the financial sector that lends to the private sector. Bujagali, built in Uganda, is a very good example of the public and private side meeting in a special purpose vehicle with the same standards really working together. So that's happened. Our standards probably are a little bit too rigid in the way we apply them, which means it takes us too long. And I think that forces many countries to really consider whether they want a multilateral to help them, because we do bring a lens on a project because of our transparency, which means that everybody sort of gets to have a view, perhaps sees more of the project than it would do if it was privately developed. And so I think the real challenge now is when developers and financing is coming from all over the world, for organisations like mine, is that we need to be catalytic in terms of funding and helping the public sector build the dam, but also then we need to be catalytic in setting the standards even if we don't build or we don't finance, so that everybody's using good international practice, the kinds of things that have been talked about in this forum.